and I'll kind of kick it off. For those that don't know who I am, first things first, my name is Jimmy Kim. I'm located here in sunny San Diego. Why do I matter? First things first, I've been a digital marketer specializing in email since 2009. So I've been in this game for 14 years now, continuing to really just watch the evolution of email happen and change the market. Secondly, I'm a former retailer as I look at myself, and I've been on both sides of the shoe, from being on the email side to the e-commerce side, where I had a retail storefront and then became a Shopify store and e-commerce side, to becoming a SaaS founder as well too. So today I am the CEO and founder of an email and SMS marketing automation platform called SendLane. Obviously, you guys mostly here because you're aware of who we are and what we do here today. So excited to be here today to kind of talk about it. And the reason I do these workshops, and I think this was a little slide that I put together because I thought it's important to understand, like, why do I do these things, and why do these things keep me motivated and excited, and why do I spend my time working through a lot of these things? Well, here's the reality of it. First of all, I like to keep my marketing mind sharp. And what I mean by that is very simple. When you're on this side and you're in this seat where I'm at, where I'm developing product, I'm working with brands, I don't actually sometimes get to work in the trenches with the brand and really experience the things that I need to experience in order to make the right product decisions as we continue to move forward in this company's growth, right? That's number one. I like to keep my marketing mind sharp. I like to know what's happening. I also like using my own product, not owning my own brand anymore. I don't get to use my own product on an everyday basis. So, what something like this allows me to do is to use my own product and understand the things that I like and don't like, and also force some of my other team members that I'll bring in to help me along the way to play with the product and realize that we have deficiencies or things that we could be better at. And it allows us to see that. And also like helping brands. Look, at the end of the day, I'm pretty brand focused. I've been there. I'm an entrepreneur. Not my number one thing in the world is just, obviously not just building cool things, but also helping people move and grow forward. So I love helping brands, especially ones with great stories, great products, great missions. It always helps. I like helping people. That's pretty obvious. I'm very much a people-centric person. And at the end of the day, I like marketing. When people ask me what I am, some people call me a salesperson, some people call me marketing, some people call me tech, whatever you might call. I always, at the end of the day, always relate myself as a marketer first before I go to anything else, because I think that is where I get my most excitement in my everyday life. So that's why I'm doing a workshop like this, and what we'll be continuing to do a lot more of these with either myself, with brands, with partners and different people. But this is where the evolution of Commerce Roundtable workshops is kind of starting to show up here. And that's what these things are going to be all about. And I live by this principle, and I think this is something I talk about. Paul Graham talks about doing things that don't scale, and as a founder and someone who works in what I just told you about, trying to figure out things, these things that I do today are things that don't scale for me into the future. But the reality of why I do them, and I think it's a good important lesson for everybody, is sometimes you have to do it in order to continue to stay relevant. Sometimes you have to do things like this in order to stay in touch with the market. Things that you have to do that don't always scale out into the future, but are important for this part of the business. And for me, as I'm trying to stay connected with the audience, stay connected with brands, understand what I'm building for the market, and making sure that we're doing the best for the market, I've got to do things that don't scale, such as working with different brands and getting into the nitty gritty and building email. And you'll see how much into the weeds we got with this brand. All right. So let's go ahead and start off with this hot seat. Today's workshop is a live case study. It's super interactive. Ask questions in real time. So if you see me talking about it, I've got my questions or my comment thing set up over here on my left-hand side. So for me, allowing me to see what you're talking about, asking questions, I can stop, ask questions. We'll go as long as we need to, but I assume this thing will go about an hour, hour and a half here today. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. The first things first is, who are we bringing up to the brand? So today we're bringing up a brand called Braxley. Braxley Bands is, to me, the world's most comfortable Apple Watch bands in market. I actually have one on right now. My wife has one on. They're really comfortable and really great. And ever since I've gotten one, I've been super excited that the fact that I don't have to wear that old rubber band, and very excited that they've been a great little brand. And so they signed up with SendLane in 2023, and their story is found right here. I'm not going to go through their story, but it was, there are two brothers that were looking to, in college, looking to start their next business. They decided that there was a problem with the watch band being uncomfortable, and they went to go solve that, and they created this watch band, and they evolutionized over time. pretty cool little story how they've gone. And they're a small little boutique store now, D2C brand out of Austin, Texas. They sell bands and now they sell bags. And we'll talk about that in a little bit later. We've got two product lines, but they've got lots of SKUs. And they came to me after they signed up and asked for help because they know that I'm on market. I try to help clients. I work with our clients pretty often and pretty in tune with a lot of our clients, especially those that want that help and ask me for that help. And I'm happy to produce that help for them. And they asked me to help. And well, every quarter I kind of adopt a handful of brands that I want to work with to help them kind of set their pace to move forward. And that's where they kind of fell into the right timing with me, and it made it a good story. So then, the first thing I did was I jumped in. And I said, "All right, Braxley, like, I'm happy to help anybody, but I need to start understanding what and where the things are right now." So first, we go into the retention marketing overview, right? So we think about email, SMS, and I start going into, hey, what is it that I should be thinking about, and what is the retention marketing strategy that I should be deploying as we go into this thing? So first thing they had was they had an agency that was doing their retention marketing. That was where their energy was being spent and their money. It was extremely pretty branding. We're going to talk a lot about that here today. It was extremely pretty branding. It was super pretty. There's no doubt that they really put a lot of energy and time into it. But the reality was, they weren't, what's that? There's a lot of things they weren't doing, but the prettiness was 100% there. They use holidays as anchors, pretty standard strategy for most people. They use, National Donut Day or Kids Sibling Day or whatever it might be. They've got the playbook, the holiday playbook, I call it, which is where people take like every little nuanced holiday across the year and make that your anchor for your retention marketing review. Okay. And then they overcomplicated copy and lack focus on CTA. I'll talk a lot about that, but these are things that I saw immediately. And the biggest thing for me that really affected and that I wanted to jump in there was they were barely breaking even right now due to the agency costs versus revenue generated, which should never be the problem. Never be the problem when you're working with a agency. You should be always focusing on making sure that you're always producing great ROI at an agency level for the brand, but also as a brand to see that the agency is doing that. It goes twofold, right? What's the point of spending $5,000 in agency if you're just making $5,000? That doesn't make sense for anybody. You've got to make sure that you're moving forward, not backwards ultimately. And of course, they lack the unified email and SMS strategy, which is also part of the whole picture that we need to put together in order to have a successful retention marketing strategy. All right. So let's look at some live emails first. And I want to start off here because I think the live emails are great to look at. And I'm going to use this like deck here, but I'm going to show you guys some of the emails. You guys can kind of go through it. So this is one of the ones. It's called Not Your Average Fanny Pack. And you kind of go down this picture and it's a little, it might not be perfectly aligned, but you'll get the idea based around it because, well, I just printed it out to show it out, right? Here's another email of them all the way. This one's called Beyonce of Accessories, all the way. Nothing can stop us, right? You've got this, comfortable UGC, watching TikTok, right? Your kid going down, shop the bands, look at that, all that good stuff, right? Again, some of this stuff, the spacing is a little off, but I'll show you more of that in a second. I just wanted to kind of put them out there so you can see one. This one's called Made in Heaven. You can see this. So this is kind of the design and branding that they had. Again, this is all messed up because I printed it, but it was stacked nicely on top of each other. However, you're kind of getting this feel of what the brand looks like. And I wanted to show you that because I think it's important that you see what I was working with when I first started, right? So, I brought that in. I said, okay, first things first, we looked at their live examples, take a look at it. And then I looked at the data, right? And, the data, when I look at things, comes into three very simple things right off the back. What is their open rate? What is their click-through rate? And ultimately, what is their revenue earned per subscriber, right? What's their subscriber? How much money are they making per email, essentially? What is their return of investment on their email? So I pulled a couple of them. I pulled four of them of the four that they had. And look, open rates, obviously, we understand are flawed in many ways. We've all agreed on that. But the one thing we know is not flawed is click-through rates, right? Click-through rates meaning that people are clicking through emails and they're interested in the product and the message you have. And then ultimately that turns it out into what we call a cost or revenue per email subscriber, right? I'm sure you've seen that before, but you should be taking that in your own business and you should be able to take that and say, if I've sent 100,000 emails this month and I've made $10,000 this month, what is my revenue per email subscriber, right? And you should be able to have that math very handy and available for you so that you can realize how I'm doing in my email side of things. But these were the data points. This is what the agency is running. I'm not here to pick on them, but this is what they're running. And this is the data that we're seeing along the way. And that's good, right? It allows us to have a baseline. It allows us to see what is actually happening within the business. And right off the back, as you guys are probably seeing it right off the back, the click-through rates are quite low, right? And there's a method to that, and I'll explain that in a little bit more why I understood that and what actually happened and what we started to work on in order to increase those. But secondly, right, our revenue per email subscriber is quite low as well too, right? So I think that's actually an error. It's not supposed to be 0.05. It's supposed to be 0.00. We're going to fix that right now so that we don't confuse anybody here. Let me go back here to here. It's supposed to be 0.005. Sorry. That wouldn't make any sense if it was if it was 0.5 there. So, all right, cool. And this is why we know this is a live workshop. All right, so with that, let's jump into what the 5 things that I jumped into right away. The moment I jumped into this thing and I said, what is it that I need to do in order to help Braxley Bands accelerate their side? So first things I did was I understand that audience management is the key to retention. One thing that I learned a long time ago is a lot of people don't understand the importance of audience management. And what I'm talking about is treating people differently within your subscriber base, right? Prospects and customers are not to be treated the same. The number one playbook error that I see for most brands happen right off the back is very simple. They take everybody they have, they lump them in and say, are they engaged or are they not engaged? I lump them up, I batch an email together, and I send it out. Well, what happens there is, the reality of it is the emails they get sent to prospects and customers, and there's no differentiation between the two, right? But the reality is, what you've got to be thinking about, and I love these little images here, but you've got to be gentle on the customers and aggressive on prospects. That's lesson number 1 to teach you right now. Gentle on the customers, aggressive on the prospects. And you'll see what I mean by this a little bit more. What I'm talking about is very simple. People who've already pulled out their wallet and spent money with you, you can talk to them a little bit differently. You can have a different tone with them. You can have different languaging with them. A lot of this stuff will be shown here throughout this presentation here today. But you can be gentle with them to have communication where they've already built that trust. You don't have to build hype into them as much as you need to build education and reason behind it, right? Where you look at prospects, and these are people who have not pulled out their wallet, they're costing you money until you convert them. Remember what I just said there. They're costing you money until you convert them. Prospects are both the greatest thing you can have and the worst thing. And prospects to me are people who opt into a pop-up, sign up on a newsletter, opt into a giveaway channel, come through social media, whatever it is, but they've never pulled out $1 out of their wallet and they've never given you $1. Think about that, right? You got to be aggressive with those people because your goal is to either get them to buy or exit your business. Okay. And I know that sounds harsh, but the reality is you want them to come in and you want them to make that first purchase as fast as possible because the goal is to get them there. Right. So at Braxley, what the things that I learned right away is they have very happy customers. That's first and foremost. In fact, I can see that happy customers as an apparel brand with about 30% of their customers repeating ultimately, which tells me that hey, their customers love them. They're going to come back, and considering they're an accessory brand that people are coming back to make that purchase, usually gives me a great indication of the quality of that customer. And they had a lot of prospects. A lot of people had opted into that pop-up, opted into that 10% coupon, opted into the newsletters, opted into all the different things they can opt in except for making that purchase ultimately. And so I saw that. And so immediately I knew that I had to bring in the 20-60-20 rule with MVC. Now, here's the thing. I've talked about MVC before, MVC being your most valuable customers, but it doesn't always mean the same thing for every business. Some businesses come out to a perfect 20-60-20 split. It's not about the split and the understanding of those exact numbers. It's more about understanding how to put people into buckets. All right. So you can split your audience into 3 groups. In this case, I split them up to 3 groups. It was very simple. I grew them to prospects, customers, and repeat purchasers. Very simple. It's a smaller brand. I don't need to get crazy with using LTVs, habits, and behaviors, but you can use those like people who buy bundles versus people who don't buy bundles and so forth. I use this principle across everything. So if I were to take the high level principle, which is MVC around prospects, that's my bottom 20%, 60% is my one-time buyer, and 20% is my 2-time buyer. or more, right? And the reason I use that first one is because my low 20% is my money burning area. That's where I need to get them into my 60%, which is to get them to what I call the profitability zone, where you're trying to start hitting some ROI back from them. And at that point, your goal is to get them to your top 20%. But if you think about this, you can actually take this into a second subsection when you're ready to start thinking about this even bigger and say, well, what about my actual customers who've paid? How do I split them up into 3 different buckets and how do I move them forward? Strategically, audience management comes down to a very simple thought process. It's around taking your audience and bringing them along the journey with you, right? And you're thinking about bringing them along the journey with you. What I'm talking about is very simple. It's around putting them into these buckets and realizing if I'm not moving my customers throughout my buckets of my business and moving that bucket forward, I'm probably not moving and being effective with my customer base, and I'm probably not spending enough time in audience management. This is where it's really important that you're thinking about this and you're driving segmentation to drive a behavioral group. So again, going back to Braxley here, we split them up into 3 simple segments. I said, well, we got prospect, customers, and repeat buyers. Very simple. And most brands, if you're under probably $10 million, that's probably more than enough splitting and segmentation that you have to do. That little bit of work is going to drive a lot more result behind it. So right away, the next thing I realized is that we had to get their audience management easy, right? Audience management is tough. Audience management can be overwhelming often. And audience management is something simple because normally we're used to setting these batch and blast campaigns where, I'm just selecting a strong part of my audience and saying, oh, well, these are my active engaged. Let's go ahead and just blast them out. Or I might get into my focus segments and drill down and find those exact people. But often we get too focused, too hyper segmented, too locked on this need and idea that I need to attack this small tiny segment, right? There's both ways. Batch and blast is too big and the focus segment gets too small. And really the importance comes down to making sure that you're thinking about how to find that middle ground, which is where that MVC framework comes in, allows you to be more generalistic and allows you to look at it at a big level without jumping in too deep or without going too wide at the same time. So what did I do, right? So with Braxley, the first thing I did was I took some segmentation and I produced a bunch of different segments that I believe that the business needs. And we're going to run through each one of them because it's going to make sense why I produced these for them, right? So first thing I call this the master send. That's the full send. Exclude your recent purchases or customers and flow right now. Notice what I did there. Full send means everybody that you have on your list, excluding your recent purchasers. So that's usually the purchases in the last 7 days or customers that are actively in a flow right now. Why am I doing that? Well, just make it easy for yourself, right? Pretty simple segment to build. Then I'd build a prospect all. This is all your prospects on the list of people who have not purchased, excluding those in flows right now. Same thing. I did a second version of it, right? Prospects active, the same as above, but with a recent active, right? So they've clicked on something, they've been on a website, they've done everything, but they're still excluded from if they're in flows right now. Notice that everybody is excluding when they're still sitting in a flow. Then I've got my customers. These are all my customers. I'm going to throw them all in one bucket and say, these are all my customers, one time or repeat. Again, excluding those are in flow. Then I say, well, what about my active customers? Now, same thing. People who've purchased at least one time, who are excluded from flow now and did not make a recent purchase in the last 7 days, right? So these are my active customers who are not purchasing. And then last but not least, I took my customers VIP. This is your 2 times LTV. For me, 2 times or high LTV. For me, looking at their brand, I said, all right, well, if their average purchase, average order value is somewhere around $60, $70, let's go ahead and say over $100, they must be a high value customer. So I put them in the VIP bucket and I created all these buckets. Now, the idea behind creating all these buckets is simple. I allowed this to create with SendLane, for example, everything's dynamic. So what the beautiful part of creating these types of segments for a business is very simple. All those are working all the time at the realest and most live action timing. So if I'm picking that I'm sending an email to my prospect active today and I select prospect active, it's going to ensure that the last second that we send, we've got the most real-time audience selected with the most real-time exclusions selected and making sure that those who are actually in those automation flows, for example, will 100% be excluded. So you're no longer having to make a lot of decisions, right? Simplifying, right? It's not about making this a tough exercise where I'm going in and building these crazy segments every day, thinking about I want these people and that people and these people. It's about creating buckets. buckets that are easy to select, buckets that are easy to understand, and audience management is going to allow you to scale ultimately. And that's where this comes into place. These simple segments right here are all most businesses, again, under maybe $10 million are even thinking about. And you shouldn't have to think anymore. Anything else is spending a lot of extra time to probably squeeze pennies out of the business. Instead, you work on the high level of it. If you focus on the 80% of your customer actions, and this is the segmentation that you'll end up driving ultimately. So that's first step first. So that's segmentation. Now, let's talk about branding, because I think branding, obviously a hot topic, and not here to offend anybody who might love or think branding is the most important thing in the world. But the reality of things are that I've got to show you what branding is. So branding, yes. Overcomplicated, no. We're going to talk about this, right? All right. So here's an example of the email. You saw that already. So branding, complicated. Branding, yes. Overcomplicated, no. No. Here's why branding is tough. Number one and foremost, you need more hands. What I mean by that is the more branded you are, the more hands you need, the more designers you need, the more people you need, the more things you need ultimately. It also is following a lot more of a large company trend. Somewhere along the way, we like to look up at large companies. Obviously, I look at large companies. You look at them, everybody looks at them. But the reality of it is that large company trends are not good trends for your small business or even your medium-sized business often. Large company trends are done because they have to spread huge nets into the world. They're sending millions and millions of emails a day, or billions even, and they realize that in order to please the general mass market, I've got to send a large company trend email. And they're great. They're great. There's nothing wrong with them, but they don't turn the ROI that you need. And especially when you're hyper focused on your retention, like you are most likely, you're probably not going to be able to follow that. It's not repeatable. Again, if it requires so many people, things aren't repeatable. You should have your retention playbook place where anybody, regardless of their design skills, should be able to copy your brand and your templating and being able to use it. It's also extremely expensive. I'll be honest. The more contractors you need, the more people, the more hands you need, it becomes time. Obviously, a lot of the branding side of things becomes very image centric, which we all know for deliverability reasons, it's not the best thing that you could be doing for your business, but they are very pretty. That's 100% a fact. They're very pretty, they're elegant, and they look great. But then they start having issues like lacking a CTR. We're going to see that example in just a second. They can be confusing. They ask for everything. There's no consistency, right? Consistency to me is such the most important thing that people seem to forget. Consistency is not just timing. Consistency is not just, asking for the same thing. Consistency to me is making it look and feel the same every time they open it. So immediately, without seeing your logo, they know it's your brand. And unfortunately, when you do a lot of branding, sometimes that branding will overcomplicate and lose that consistency within the brand. And ultimately, it lacks results. With branding, yes, I know that this is the hurtful thing to hear as maybe a designer if you're listening to this, but the lack of results happens often because the branding is just overcomplicated often. So let's take a look at it. And I broke down this first email here because I think this is a great email to look at. It was one of the examples I showed you, but I took a picture and I screenshot it into 4 chunks. Imagine it's one long thing, right? Let's take a look at this and break it down real quick. All the way up, nothing can stop us. Shop Apple Wands, shop belt bags. What did we miss out right away? Got 2 CTRs right off the top. Above the fold, 2 CTRs. What am I supposed to click on as a user? Now, I scroll down, and now I'm seeing about an Apple Watch, right? Okay, it's great. Now, I want to either watch a TikTok or give me some bands. 2 different CTRs again. Now, by now, I've seen 1, 2, 3, 4 CTRs, and I've scrolled once down the slide, right? Then I keep going out, but that's not all. The watch band is an epitome of fashion meets function. Then they pop personality, shop watch bands. Okay, so now we're pitching it again. And then you go all the way down to the bottom, and you've got more features. Then you got shop now, customer support, refer and earn, social media, social media, social media. So I looked at this email and I said, well, the first thing I'm going to do to dissect this email is going to go and look at where the clicks are actually occurring. Where are people clicking on such a long, unfocused email? Well, we're going to look at it, and I looked at it, and believe it or not, I bet you no one here would even realize it. But let me tell you the 3 places that got the most clicks. Number 1, they got the customer support button got a bunch of clicks, right? The Instagram got a bunch of clicks. And then on this one, I don't remember, but on a lot of them, the UGC got a lot of clicks. So what I realized real quickly was that the users did not know how to use the bands or weren't sure how to use the bands. And we had to educate them how easy it was in order to make that happen. That was the first learning I learned from that. Secondly, I learned that their clicks were all over the place because I was tracking every click with a tag, something you do in SendLane. You tag everything. I was able to see CTA1, CTA2, CTA3, CTA4, and I maxed some of those up. And I was able to quickly see where users are spending their time on this email. And unfortunately, it was just all over the place. And being all over the place, you'll never be able to drive retention revenue when they're clicking on everything. You need them focused and clicking on the things that you want them to buy, the actions that you want them to do, right? So then I immediately went and said, well, we need to create a great template, and we need to create and formulate it using the 3 E's, which we all know are very simple. Excitement, which is what makes them continue to read. Education, obviously giving the logic and understanding, and edification, which is to ask for the click, right? Those are the 3 E's that I talk about all the time. I'm not here to talk about them over and over, but like that's what I always focus on. So what I did first is we started to create their next setup. Now, I needed to create a repeatable playbook, something that anyone can pick up, anyone can take the design, and anyone can actually take this design and repeat it within their business. So I'm going to show you the crazy Figma file because you're going to see it. But I want to talk you guys through this Figma file because this Figma file is very simple if you actually look at what we did here. So what we did was we took their obviously branding, colors, and images that they had. Then we switched out. Here's their heroes. Here's all their different heroes they can use. But the thing about all their heroes, they're all the same. All you have to do is apply a different background image or the text image or the button images. But if you look at them, they're all the same. Then we took all their headers. What does headers look like? Well, there should only be a certain amount. So we created those blocks, right? Then we said, well, what about products? And we created product blocks behind them, social banners, reviews, and even content that we plug in there. And the idea behind this is very simple. Blocks. Not thinking about entire emails, think about blocks and formatting. When you're building a landing page, you don't build an entire landing page. You build the blocks of each section and you put them together. It's the same theory that we put together with the playbook when I'm calling. Now, I worked with my designer and my team. Obviously, this does cost a little money and time. But what we did was we spent time understanding the brand, putting it together, and creating a repeatable playbook that not us, but anybody, including someone who had no idea how to do design, can take, update these emails, and make them good, on brand, have all the 3 E's being played into it, where you can create the excitement level, you can educate some more, and you can edify them and ensure that that can get to over to them. And so that ultimately created this old template, right? So remember, we looked at these old templates, these were them, and notice something right away. Obviously, besides the Braxley band on the top, nothing is repeatable behind any of these. They're just images that some great designers building. And we went and started to change it to something like this. Now, I could argue both ways, and we look at different people and say, these are better, these are worse, these are, whatever it might be. But the reality of it is very simple. If you look at all of these, they're all simple to update. If I want to update this middle one, for example, I change the background, change the words, change the colors. Suddenly I've got a new email, but I'm staying on brand. Same thing here on the next VIP early release there, right? If I'm just changing some of the top words there, I can put it in, I can flip it around and change the background image, but I'm keeping the structure the same. In fact, you can see that happening right there on the next one there as well. So like we took the idea of systemizing and keeping everything very, very focused, yet keeping the blocks easy to flip and flop and add in different places so that a user, anybody, not us, not just Braxley, but anyone who came and picked this thing up, could actually take it and add it. In fact, you can see even on the headers, like the unique headers that we use there as well too. So that was the first thing, was all around just understanding the branding and getting their playbook into a place where they can repeat this branding over and over again, not recreating every time over and over again. It's about just updating and allowing it to fly fast. Because look, I know that next email sounds like the most important email that you might be sending for your brand, but the reality is only a certain amount of people are going to see it, only a certain amount of people are going to click on it, and most likely they probably won't always take action behind it. So we do that, and that's first number one. All right. So let's continue on with the next one. Now it's time for clicking, right? Testing, right? And I was testing a lot with him. And the reason why I was testing with him, and Irving already pointed this out earlier, they had really low click-through rates. So I needed to understand why. What was going on? It was time for me to go jump in. Well, the first thing I noticed was I needed to focus on clicks or revenue, not opens. I needed to ensure that I'm always experimenting and testing something, and I needed to know how their audience was reacting. So I tested a lot, and I already instilled this principle into their brand that they need to be testing every email, because those little small incremental lifts on every email that you can test, even if it's 1, 2, 3% of click rates or 100 clicks more, that can make a difference in a campaign. And if you have the option and power to make split tests, it'd be crazy for you not to spend the time split testing ultimately. And so that's what we did. So first things I did was I tested different examples of audiences with differences. So I took the idea behind customers, prospects, and I used same copy, but I used a lot of different subject lines. I tested him, I played with him, and I tested a lot. But look at the difference and the stark difference. And remember, these are small subsection tests that we're doing for 2-3 hours before we flip it over and allow the rest of these things to go out. But the reason why I want to show some of these things is really important. And the one that is showing all of the information is the apparent winner of each of them for what we're aiming for. But notice the click-through rates right away as we start playing with it and trying to understand their audience. One, this was the prospect on the left side, a little bit larger. Notice how it was a bigger test here. But notice that just the highest open rate does not equate the highest click-through rate. What matters is clicks. No clicks, no purchase. That's honestly it. And just because this one got revenue, notice how the low click rate was. Later on, we'll talk about this a little more, but you can see that number and data starting to show up here. Now let's look over on the right side. This is your customer list. I took the customer list and split it up because I was trying to figure out what I wanted to optimize for. Now, with a customer, I'm looking at something a little bit different because it's not just about opens and clicks, but it's also about, what's resonating the best with them. Here on C, we looked for the best balance, right? This one obviously over time increased, but this one had the best balance of clicks as well too. And you'll notice I tried a lot of different things. I flipped different ones over, and we'll talk about split testing principle later on. But essentially, I did the most simple split test, at least an ABC split test in most cases. I like to do ABCD often. It allows you to really see it, and you'll see. Right at the end of the day, this test on the left side, and we'll talk about this a lot more later on, but this test generated 0.002 on our prospects. But on this test on the right side, we generated 0.01. Think about how much difference that is in speed, money. 0.01, a penny, 10 cents per subscriber per email we sent overall. This is the entire campaign. This is just a split test showing that, right? So I can tell you that what we saw immediately was that the importance of split testing and finding that and tweaking your audience to ensure that you're getting the max out of each client and each email, because it's important. So we put that principle into place. Then we needed to start defining a strategy, because the strategy of holidays is the worst strategy of them all. And I'm sorry if I offend anybody here, but just because it's National Donut Day, you can't send them pants and say, it's National Donut Day, guys. Get new pants. That's like the kind of stuff that I see often because people hedge on that. The strategy is a bigger picture thinking. It's not just about your retention. It's about your entire strategy within the entire company. So I challenged them to start thinking bigger about the way that we need to approach it, start thinking bigger about how we need to put these sales together, even thinking bigger about how the money is not the money, but how the what's the word I'm looking for? How the company is positioning themselves when we think about strategy and marketing. Okay. So, defining strategy, holidays are not your strategy, but it is the key to retention success. Defining strategy, 100% the retention success there, right? You've got to understand, history behind everything. You've got to be able to identify what caused people to want to make that purchase. And you've got to look at all the historical things, look at the clicks and the purchases, understand what the company needs. And what I'm talking about that is not just understanding what I want to sell, but also turning around to the company and saying, guys, where's your inventory at? What do we need to help you move to turn over to get you more inventory back in so that I can sell more into the future, right? Understanding what the company needs is something you've got to think about as well too. I also, as far as needs, sorry, I think I jumped ahead. That was inventory, but the other part I need is what do we need to turn in revenue, right? What do we need to aim for? What's our goal? And I looked at the historical sales so I can predict what I believe we could do right away. And I started to understand a strategy behind what has worked and what hasn't worked. And I had to understand the top of the funnel. Now, this is something I'll talk about later, but the reality of this is very simple. And everything I'm going to talk about here as we continue talking about is very simple. Top of the funnel is just as important as the bottom of the funnel. And what I mean there is acquisition is just as important as far as retention. If your acquisition funnel is empty, your retention funnel can only pump so much energy out before that retention channel will dry out. Okay. You've got to ensure that you're spending enough money and energy on the top of the funnel. That means you're getting new traffic. You're finding ways to get traffic either through advertising or through whatever channel you have, blogging, advertising, TikTok, social, whatever it is. You've got to get traffic on the top of the funnel because in order to maximize retention, a lot of that has to come into place. All right. So I introduced what I call event-based marketing to them, and I've talked about this in the past, and I talk about this as a great way to do it for even Black Friday. But applying this principle in everything that you do in business, and strategically allowing yourself to create events for everything you're doing in marketing, allows you to get really focused on different things that you need to be thinking about. Right now, we're gonna peg on him right here, and we're gonna talk about it real quick. When we think about right away, I said, well, what are the next events coming up? And this is what I basically said. Let's look at the holidays. Let's think about what we have in inventory. Let's think about the big holidays, the ones that people care about. Mother's Day, Memorial Day, obviously, that's what we needed to cover. And I said, what else do we have? Well, it's our 7-year anniversary. Great. We're going to do that 7-year anniversary sale. And we have a new product we want to release. Oh, let me drink something. We have a new product that we want to release. All right. So these are the things that they told me that they wanted to do. And I said, okay, great. I understand. These are the holidays. These are the things that we have. And these are the templates in the calendar that we can do. So let's define a strategy and let's work on ensuring that we're aligning our website, our marketing, our themes, everything are aligned based around all that. All right. So when you think about an event, you guys all know the very simplicity of an event, right? There's an opener, there's a main show, sometimes an encore, and sometimes a second event, right? You go to a concert, you go in, the first guy comes up. He's not really that great, but he gets the audience warmed up. They boo at him, they jazz at him. Then the main show comes up, and that's maybe the funny comedian or whatever comes up and does all the fun stuff. And maybe they come back for an encore, or maybe they come back for an optional second step. But the idea is very simple. How do you apply that same principle into your entire strategic vision of your marketing playbook? Right. Secondly, how do we start applying principles of direct response and storytelling into this? And this is one of the emails that we had, and the formatting is not perfect because I'm just kind of taking a snapshot and didn't come out perfectly. But the idea of storytelling and direct response is obviously very important. In this email here, you can see that we told a story about how the brand started, why we're having a birthday sale, what a thankfulness around what we've done, and so forth. And we created this really great story around why we're doing this huge sale and took him to a landing page. This was an explosive sale for them. It was really good. And the reason why it was really good was we disrupted the typical pattern. Now, it doesn't mean we use this the whole time. We sprinkle it in with enough to disrupt, to change, but then to bring them right back to what they should expect, right? And obviously creating that consistency is important too. But this was the direct response. All right. So then we created the calendar strategy. So again, the old strategy was whatever we could do, a product launch, whatever holiday day they had. And the new strategy was all around making sure that we had really clear, focused approach around where and what and how we should be selling. So let's go ahead and go into goals, and I'll start to break out exactly what we did here. So the goal for me was very simple. One, I needed to understand the website. I needed to make sure that it was memorable, the color, design, feel. I needed to make sure brand awareness was clear. I needed to make sure revenue was to generate more and shorten the purchase cycle. Remember, I talked about the prospects. I needed to increase their sales cycle. I needed to build trust, and I needed to get them ready for the second purchase. Those are all my goals that I think about when I'm thinking about developing the strategy. These are things. Can I make sure that I personalize experience from the email to the website? Is that feel good? That means that they click, they're on a landing page, they click, they're on a page that's specific to what we're talking about. Is it memorable? Colors, right? Are all the different things feel the same? Is awareness there? Obviously, education, constant awareness of education. You'll see. And what I've done in this thing is every time I'm talking about two brothers that developed this brand, or, based out of Austin, or, American made brand, or American focused brand, small business brand, I continuously educate the brand as a small blurb because awareness is important because people connect to that awareness. Revenue generation, it's all about, shortening that sales cycle. Of course, the faster we get in front of them, sending more emails, getting up and building that trust. So let's go ahead and jump into that event. So the Mother's Day event looked kind of like this, and we're going to break down how I set their sites. First, we went to the company and we had a meeting, and we said, okay, what are we heavy on? What can we sell? And what can we do? All right, A. B, I said, Mother's Day is coming up, but people don't shop on Mother's Day for Mother's Day. People shop a week ahead of Mother's Day to ensure that they get their presents for Mother's Day. So we launched the prize, and I think Mother's Day was like May 12th, and we launched it on May 1st of the event. The idea behind this is you're shopping for your mother, so we should be ahead of that, and we should be thinking about that. So May 1st, we got the first email out, right? What did we focus on? A matching bracelet sale. Buy one for mom, get one for yourself. That was the sale that we did, right? And we had all these fitted bands. They had heavy inventory on a certain band. So I said, let's make that the highlight. Let's focus on that and say, you buy one of these, we'll give you one for free. Essentially, huge sale, right? Or it was buy two, get one free, whatever it was. You email Mother's Day, you ship, shipping guarantee. What's the most important thing we're thinking about? Mother's Day, right? So we made sure, and then I split it off into 3 different subsections of emails. All 3 people got a different email in this. Prospects and customers and VIPs, they got a different email as we went through this because I needed to track and understand their history, right? Then the second day, notice something I did. I talked about more Mother's Day stuff. What does it help you do? But I did not email the customers that second day. I only emailed the prospects because I'm looking to make them customers, right? Then on day 3 or day 2A, I went off into the other side and said, let's give those other people something very different. Let's give them happy stories. Not what does it help you do, but happy stories about why it's great for your business, right? So, I mean, not great for business, great for you as a consumer at the end of the day, right? Then we went to May 3rd. I sent an SMS send. It was a reminder. But then I also sent an active email to number 1, those who opened and clicked that first email, but did not purchase. I sent him a very focused reminder email about that sale. Okay. Then we went to May 5th and we went into the final countdown. I know Mother's Day is not till May 14th or 13th, I think it was. But the reality was I need to get ahead of them and tell them the countdown is now because the end of shipping is now. And if you want this for time, you need to go after it. So May 5th, I'm sending an email. I'm splitting up to 3 different segments of people, and I'm focused on giving them that different message. Then on May 7th, I'm sending them another SMS and email and letting them know they've got 24 hours left. And I focused on those who are active in the emails 1 and 2 or SMS, did not buy and did not have a cart. Again, look how I'm starting to tighten it down. What you've noticed is I throw the net and I start tightening down as the sale is going on. So you're not over messaging the people that don't want the messaging. You're focusing on the people that are engaging with you ultimately, right? And then we go to May 8th, which is the last day. In the email, the last day, I sent an email out in the morning saying, this is the last day. You've got to make the thing. And then we followed it up with the same on the May 8th again. I know you're probably thinking, wow, you're messaging a lot. But again, it's super focused. SMS the last day. 12 hours left. Matching bracelet event is over. And you've got an active email of 1, 2, and SMS did not buy. I sent one more active email out and says, last chance, 12 hours left. We got to get your shipping notice. I started focusing away from Mother's Day to making sure you had a gift for Mother's Day, because you're not here to sell to your mother or their mother. You're here to sell to them that this is what their mother might want. And we all know as sons or daughters, sometimes we're pretty terrible at buying gifts. Sometimes someone just telling us something will do it. And I knew that, right? I'm a buyer. If my wife had needed an Apple Watch, man, I would have been like, what a great idea. And that was kind of the theory we took around that, right? So that's where we got into it, and that's where it went, right? And so that allowed us to understand the audience a lot. We did really well on that sale. It created a lot of interesting understanding, but the big clarity was by separating them, they had the best revenue week of their month. And by May 8th, we had done more revenue by May 8th almost than we did the entire month of April with this one sale. And the reason why that was happening is because last month we did a bunch of holiday-based sales, and there was, different ones that you did, but unfortunately we didn't nail a story, an event, and get people excited and peg up on a very important milestone date and push on that. So that was the first sale we did, right? So May 8th, we finished off and we said, all right, we've done great. We've created revenue. Now we've done basically what you did last month. Let's start making some more money. Well, the next one was all about storytelling. Well, I wanted to go out and say, well, what can we do now? And they said, hey, Jimmy, we've got our 7-year anniversary. It's our birthday. And I said, well, perfect. We're going to have a birthday sale. So on May 12th, now remember here, May 8th, so 4 days later, on May 12th, we dropped that direct response style email. Very disruptive from what they just had. They just had Mother's Day for 8 days. They had quietness for a couple of days. And now today, what do they have? They're now on direct response, right? I dropped them a direct response May 12th, told them a story about, Braxley, how we got there, what we did, yada, yada, yada. And then I put them together and separated them, prospect customers and VIP, because I knew that each one of them have a different response. And I split tested, of course, all of those different split tests there. And then I said, all right, May 12th, we have direct response style. Then I introduced on May 13th a mystery box hero sales send. And I only hit him with the prospects. And this was the best prospect send that we ever did so far. And what I found really interesting was twofold. One, people just love mystery boxes. But number two, what was even more interesting was the fact that what's that called again? Was the fact that what's that called again? That the prospects reacted so well to that, and it created a lot of sales, but it also created other sales. What that told me was I had to wake the prospects up. They weren't listening. So I had to try something else. That also tells me the direct response on the prospects might have not worked as well as a sale there, right? Then on May 14th, we continued on. We had a mystery hero box send. We sent it to people who did not click or purchase in the last 3 campaigns. So we really focused on the people, we had the prospects and then the customers who did not click or purchase. We got really, really focused on what that might look like. And then on May 17th, we dropped an SMS last chance. Oh, there we go. May 15th, we dropped another direct response piece. This time, a typical different direct response. It's a 7-year story. So I talked about the 7-year story. Here's the product line. Here's how we evolved. Here's the commitment of the company and so forth. Then we jumped into May 17th, sent an SMS. And then the 17th, last call, sales ending, get through it. And we only focused on the engaged audience. You guys see that? Like what I've done there as I go through this is each time from May 12th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 6 days, 12th to the 17th, 5 days, 6 days period. We basically pushed really hard and created a ton of sales behind it. Now at this point, we're creating a lot of sales, things were working, and it worked really well. And the big key for this one was the unique landing page that we built. The landing page just being like, here's our 7-year anniversary sale. Just check out all our crazy sales that we have going on. It was a reinforcement of the email that they're receiving anyways, but people love to feel like they're on a certain focus page of sales. And that's where we think about, right? So the revenue focus we took, and what it ultimately did was it took it from 10% of revenue generated through email and SMS to 36% plus. Now I'm going to break down more of those numbers in a second here. But think about what we really did with these revenue focus changes, right? We took a brand that was, let's just use a simple number. If you're making $100,000 a month, 10,000 to 36,000. That's a pretty significant lift for a business, right? But it wasn't that we put so much more energy, time, and effort into it. It was the fact that we wrapped strategy around the entire picture that created this motion, right? That's 3 times more effective. In fact, if you look at the actual dollars and cents, remember these earlier, right? And again, let me go back to this because this is totally wrong here. Let me put that here because that wouldn't make sense here. Let me go back to slideshow. Perfect. All right. So 0.005 here. This was earlier. Well, take a look at this. I'm just going to use those 7 emails. That first sale that we did, the Mother's Day sale only I took. And I took that information, and this was our difference in numbers, right? Notice the immediate increases. First of all, because I averaged them over 7, because it's strategic. These emails all work together as opposed to these 4 emails that had no connection between each other, which is why I have to look at them separately. Here, I took an event strategy, and I looked at all those emails, and I said, let me bring all those 7 emails together and look at what those did together. The average open rate was 73%. Great open rate, right? I know it's not always real, but it's a trend. It's showing me that things will work. More importantly, look at my click-through rate. Look how many more people I was getting able to engage. I'm not going to make miracles here, guys, but I'm going to be able to make big impactful changes. So I was able to essentially double their average click-through rate, but their biggest thing was here they were making 0.002, 0.005, 0.001, 0.002, and increase into a penny a subscriber. Think about how much of a difference. In fact, 0.002 to 0.0124 is a 500% increase per subscriber value. That's a lot. And that takes work. You've got to continue working on that in order to get it there. But ultimately, why I'm showing this is very simple. You can send 4 dislocated, disconnected emails based on a holiday strategy, or you run one event strategy writing actual tight segments, focused energy, and you can turn real results behind it. And that's why in first 7 days, 8 days, essentially, we turned more revenue than the entire month that was before, right? And the average open rate, Hillary, as you're asking, the average open rate for customers was north of 7 to 10% of the CTR. I'm not open rate. CTRs were north of 7 to 10%. My prospect group, I was just trying to get to 2%. My goal is to try to get prospect group 2%. I usually hovered around uh, zero point 0.9 to 1.1, 1.2 is where I hovered, but the CTR of the customers was super high, which helped me kind of split it up. Now, remember, these were also on top getting all those, but what I did was I split them out and I looked at it and really understanding what it was. But this was the overall with both blended, all your emails blended to your actual clicks, to your actual output. I blended all the data together, which is where we got this number. So that average open rate is for customers and prospects, and the CTR is for customers and prospects. Again, very focused groups, very focused energy, very focused message with a lot of split testing as well too. All right, that's a 520% increase. So the unique learnings I really learned from a lot of these things, and they're not really as unique to me that I knew them. It was just that I continue to understand these things. It's where I sharpen my knife and understand where it comes. So number one thing, cashback versus discount versus buy one, get one free. God, this was such an interesting debate that we had within their brand because they had all three of them that we've been talking about. Here's what I learned, and I'm going to tell you guys, and SaaS companies might hate me for this, and unfortunately, I'm just going to tell you the truth about it, but cashback didn't work. People don't latch on to cashback the same way they latch on to discount. Buy one, get one free works only if the ideal works behind it. By throwing a random buy one, get one free, I don't think it works as much. But when we started throwing it around and wrapping around, buy one for mom, buy one for someone else, it started to work, right? So we started to see something. But buy, and I know historically they had a buy two, get one free that worked really well. But I think it really just depends on seasonality, where you're at. But the big thing that I learned was cashback versus discount. Well, cashback, people really didn't respond to cashback versus, and because people were feeling like there wasn't reality versus a discount. People really like discounts, and I'm seeing it over and over again. I see it with other brands, but ultimately, cashback versus discount, 100%. I will show you the data that discount works so much better in the psychology of that discount. Not saying it's better for the long term, not saying it's better for repeat, but for the immediate sale, discount works much better. Second thing I learned was product A buyers are not product B buyers. Remember earlier I talked about the product launch? Well, we were trying to figure out this product launch. Braxley Bands also just released a thing called a bag and belt set. And it's a really cool bag and belt set. I bought one for my kid, but I realized really quickly, at least for me, and I looked at the people who in my company that have purchased from them, and we use, and the demographics very different. But sometimes we don't think about that when we're producing products and brands. And what we learned there in this unique learning was that just because they buy product A does not always mean they'll buy product B. In fact, sometimes you need to split them apart. So don't force it, recognize where they are, and use more first party and contextual data. So one of the things that I did was, hey, maybe I just need to see how many people click on bags versus belts, or bags versus what's that called again? Bands, right? And I started to put different tests into place, and I started tagging different things. And I quickly realized that most band people don't click on bags. They're just not interested. It wasn't the same thing. So I needed to stop forcing that sale. And third is use SMS to support sales, not to lead. We tried leading with it. The reality is supporting sales is really where the magic happened. And what I'm talking about is, telling someone that not like that a sale has started, but telling people that the sale is going on, telling people the sale is expiring, telling people they have a certain amount of time left, time-based, sensitive, right? SMS is a real-time channel. It happens while a person is doing anything. And so it's important for you to support your sale, not lead with it. It's a closing tool ultimately. And the more I use it as a closing tool, the more effective it was getting as a closing tool as well too. So there's some of the unique learnings I learned with it. And then we jump into what is next. What are we going to work on next with the Braxley Band? Because I'm sure you're curious about it. And so we're going to jump right into what we think about bigger and next, right? Look, email and SMS are the most powerful intent signal of them all. There's no doubt. The click, I've talked about it over and over again, but they're often telling you what they want and what they're interested in. But often we just don't listen. We let those clicks fly off into the air. They make a bunch of clicks and we send them another campaign. That's really what's wrong with the retention playbook ultimately today anyways, right? So what do you do with this stuff? Well, let's look at some examples of ways we're going to start adding to Braxley Band. So first thing, we might send a campaign and tag exactly what they're interested in And then we're going to go ahead and send them into an automated flow where we might send them a dynamic data email like this, for example, right? We might send them and say, hey, based on what they clicked in 3 hours, we're going to send them a content piece around, what they're most likely interested in. So if they clicked on fitted bands, we're going to send them more data on fitted bands 3 hours later. Again, requires a good unified system to do this, but this is really important, right? Think about that behavior. I clicked, I'm interested, but I didn't make a purchase. Why? There could be a million reasons why. Let's get back in front of them. Let's look at another way example. Maybe I send just an SMS out there and I've got 20% off those fitted bands. I'm going to tag it a little bit different than I'm going to tag that link and I'm going to tag them and I'm going to bring them over and send them a target email about those fitted bands. Look what I just did. I clicked on an SMS. I've shown intent. I didn't make a purchase. So 3 hours later, I'm going to fire them off an email that says, hey, by the way, because you made this purchase, by the way, because what's that called? Because you didn't make the purchase, here's that email over to remind him that we got 20% off, right? Think about it, targeted versus typical. We think about it differently. When that next message comes over that person, it's very much apparent. If you got a targeted message and it's something you were interested in versus a typical message where they might have to go searching for that same fitted band. As you look at this image, you can see right here where my mouse is hovering, where it says 20% off versus bringing them down here. It doesn't relate and translate, even though it literally is the same message. And so then we jump into what we'll continue to expand on once we can start honing down on what people like when people are buying, how long their buying cycles are. We start adding automated life cycle flows into this mix. And that means we're going to personalize that experience from what they clicked on and follow them up with different things. So notice here, at the high level, you might click an email, they send them another email, wait 24 hours, they open it, we might send them an SMS or an email, right? Different things that you might be doing. And not saying this is the example, but an example might look like this, right? We add a click, you add some tags to it, you send them more on popular item, wait for another day, you send them a unique coupon code, you wait for another 2 days, and so forth. And I'm just going to kind of like high level kind of click on this. But the idea behind this is very simple. When you think about it, you can take a person's contextual information and we can drive an experience out for that person based around what they're most interested in. In this case, I put down that they're interested in men's shoes. They clicked on it. Well, they're going to get flown down a continuous flow where they're going to be added a tag. We're going to exclude them from automations, and we're going to send them more about men's shoes. We're going to send them a coupon code to help them make a purchase faster. And we're going to continue to push on them, build some FOMO behind them, layer on email and SMS, and try to push them to a sale. And if they don't make a purchase, we'll bring them back into list A so that you can bring them over and you can come back and start prospecting him. But using that click and starting to identify them, those precious clicks is the next thing that we're going to be doing. We see generally anywhere from 25 to 50% uplift on a campaign immediately by doing a single email or SMS behind a 3-hour wait. Imagine putting someone through this. Obviously the idea is that you want to be able to increase your revenue, focusing on less sending, more actual revenue, right? So why does this all work ultimately? Why does things like this really work, right? When it works because you're focusing them on one thing. We're humans. We have shiny object syndrome all the time. Think about it, right? You got time. Buying cycles are so important. You got to think about these things. People take time. When do people buy? Well, they buy by paydays. Ultimately, unfortunately, or whatever you want to look at it, the world lives on payday cycles and people buy on payday cycles. So you've got to make sure you're timing yourself there and you've got to get them there. And nurturing is so important. Confidence is built by continuous reinforcement and continuously being able to get people to re-click and come back, repurchase. You've got to be able to get them confident in your brand. How you build confidence is being in front of their face ultimately. And of course, when you think about the difference between what retention and acquisition goes, what I'm talking about is essentially the change and evolution of how retention should be operated versus how acquisition should be operated, where automated lifecycle flows come in just like you would in a conversion piece of a retargeting piece when you're doing acquisition. You are using yin and yang when you're doing retention and acquisition. And you've got to be thinking about how to apply those with the yin and yang within your business today. And what I'm teaching you is essentially this. We talked about segmentation. We talked about campaigns. We all do the automation flows. But the automated lifecycle flow is that missing piece to help you drive all those people from consideration to the end of conversion by helping them make that purchase. And that's where we're going to take the next step of Braxley's movement. Is the idea is how do we start taking them and saying, Now we've got all these people consideration that we stop at because all that we're doing is putting it out there and we move on to that next campaign. We're going to start adding automated lifecycle flows into their retention program, which is going to allow them to continue to maximize every dollar and cent out of their retention program. And then we're going to supercharge it with UGC. That's obviously the next thing we're going to do. Reviews. Look, user generated content. There's a lot of ways you look at user generated content in email and SMS. In retention, I look at reviews. It's super helpful. People are leaving reviews. They're social. They're user generated. They're great, right? Being able to collect, post, and moderate these things are really important. Getting them on your website to help you increase conversion, right? And having good reviews, right? We all get that. It's something we're going to work on with them next as well too. But really what we're going to be working on is putting sure that we do this. We're going to start adding those reviews to their lifecycle marketing. Ultimately, they abandon a cart, they leave something. We're going to put those reviews to. We're going to make sure they're relevant and fresh. We're going to show plenty of reviews to them. We're going to use those reviews in storytelling format, and soon you'll be able to put it in dynamic reviews. In fact, I'm going to leverage contextual data, right? If I have someone who's clicking on something, I'm going to target them with UGC to help me close the deal ultimately as well too. So that means I'm taking reviews and based around what they're interested in, I might send them more information, free shipping to fast shipping, customer service to fast service, or solves a problem. So remember earlier I talked about Braxley bands. One of the things they click on most is customer service or how to use it. Those two things told me something. I said, well, why am I sending someone who's clicking on customer service another email about our next sale? We should be taking the people who click on customer service and talk about how great our customer service. Or people are clicking on how to use the product, and I should send them more information on how to use the product with targeted UGC on other people telling them how great the product is. Think about that. If you're a person and you click on a certain thing and you say, really, the product looks great, but I really don't know how to use it. I click on it, I look at it, I might not get the information. Then 3 hours later, I get an email that says, here's how to use the product. That feels good. It feels like someone's listening to you. And that's what probably will ultimately make you a purchase. And then, of course, success stories that people enjoy as well, too. And then we'll add it into email and SMS. So we'll add it for abandoned carts. We'll put it into campaigns and flows. We'll put them in with dynamic, with the newest and freshest content so we can continue to improve their conversions and hopefully improve their click-through rates. And then we will even add it to SMS as well, too, something we're testing, which will make those reviews into an MMS. And we'll try to put it out there, tease the story, and see if we can get them more interested through UGC. So those are all things that we're going to be adding with the goal of getting higher CTR with stronger storytelling, right? And something that we're excited about, as I were talking about, this SendLane Reviews is now live. It's something that you can start adding to your email and SMS. If you're not aware, talk to your customer support, talk to the different people within the team or a salesperson. We can show you all about the new reviews product. We're onboarding people right now. All right. Well, with that going, here we go to our final thoughts here today. Remember, retention is not just sending emails and SMS. Again, retention is not just sending emails and SMS. Retention requires acquisition. I made it a point to talk about this earlier. If you're not doing acquisition on the top of the funnel, don't expect your retention engine to continue moving forward. You're going to move downwards. You'll always move downwards if you're not bringing in new traffic. Traffic is the lifeblood of any business. Retention is making sure you're maximizing that traffic. So remember, when you're thinking about this and all the things that I told you about, remember that if you can't have acquisition, it doesn't mean that you only need acquisition or only retention. It means you need a good balance of both. And in order to find those good balances, it requires you to have both sides of the needles done. All right. With that said, if you enjoyed this talk and enjoyed a lot of the things we're talking about, I wanted to jump into what we're doing in September. On September 18th and 19th, we are doing our first live event from SendLane in San Diego, California, called Commerce Roundtable San Diego. It's going to be a really cool event. I'm really excited about it because it's not just keynotes and speakers. We're going to do one thing that's going to be the most unique thing that you've ever seen. We're going to solve your problems on stage with experts. And what I'm talking about is half the day, both days, we are doing audience-led sessions. And what's cool about that is going to be very simple. You will come up, be vulnerable, share your story, tell them all about what and where you are with your business and what problem you're having. You will be in front of 3 to 5 experts that are sitting there that are going to be able to help you and understand where to drive that decision making. And we're going to use that. So we'll have an acquisition time, we'll have retention time, we'll have operations, we'll have 3PL time. We'll have all those different times to make sure that people have enough times to ask experts those dying, burning questions that you might have, which is really exciting. In fact, you can expect over 300 events, 2 full days of events, including food and everything else is included there. We have 20 different experts, some really cool people coming to speak from, people like Chase Diamond, Nick Shackelford, Ron Shaw's coming. We've got Oopsie Podcast with Zoe and Jess coming to speak on our stage. So we got a lot of cool things happening. The onstage paneling, of course, tons of networking. Sunny San Diego, who doesn't like that? And of course, we'll feed you a lot of great food because that's really important as well too. And in fact, we've got a 15% discount here today. The code is early. It's 15% off here today. You can register today at commerceroundtable.com. The first 50 registrants as well get premium lounge seating. We'll have a VIP seating for the first 50. I think we've got a handful left here at this point. But if you get in there from the first 50, you will get that premium lounge set seating. In fact, right now, I want to start off by thanking you guys all for being here, listening to me babble and talk about it. And with that, I want to give away a prize here as well, too, because I think that, well, you guys all deserve a prize and you're here for that prize. So I have no idea who I'm supposed to give this prize to. Oh, wait, I see it. The prize winner is Julio Marin. Julio Marin, you have won a $150 Amazon gift card. Madison, who is already here, will be in touch with you here shortly to get you that gift card. Congratulations. Thanks for being a part of our workshop here today. I hope you learned something really cool. And with that, I also want to give a little bit of a free gift away because I want everybody to walk away with something. So for you being here today and just being here and listening, I've got my e-commerce academy. If you enjoyed listening to what I talk about, you want to learn more about MVC framework, you want to learn more about event marketing, you want to learn about more deliverability, this course is a 12-hour course that I'm giving away for you for free right now. You can download it. You can scan the QR code. You can go to e-commerce academy, pick bundle 4, and you can use code CRHOT for 100% off. Download that right now. You can get that as well too. Again, it's Commerce Roundtable, commerceacademy.com. You've got CR Hot bundle number 4. You get that for 100% off. And I want to thank you guys all. One things first, thank you for allowing me to sit here and share what I've been working on within the company and with Braxley Vans. You'll find me on Twitter. I share a lot of these insightful things on Twitter at YoJimmyKim if you want to find me on Twitter, or you can email me. I respond. So if you really want to email me, please email me, jk@sendlane.com. I'll be happy to help you any way I can, try to guide you the best of my ability. And of course, I'm also available on LinkedIn as well too. Again, this has been Commerce Roundtable Hot Seat. This is hosted by me. This is our new format. And last but not least, as one little thing, if you're not coming, please come. It's going to be an awesome event. Very excited about this live event. CommerceRoundtable.com. First 50 are getting access to the premium lounge seat. Again, use code EARLY to get that as well too. And with that, I want to thank you guys all for being here. I think I'm supposed to do a little Q&A potentially, but I will jump in here if you have any questions around what I've shared here today. So I'll pause here and I'll look here and I see, what was the special concierge add-on consulting you offer Braxley onboarding? Wow, that's a crazy thing. So thanks, Irving, for the kind words as well too. You add, I would say that the simplest way to say this is there is no service. It didn't cost them any money. It was me and how I basically get involved with our brands and companies. As I kind of mentioned in the beginning, how I stay sharp often and how I'm thinking about this is I look for brands that I think that have a lot of potential and that could use some energy and help. And I see frustration behind either founders or the brand or whatever it might be. And I try to help out and figure out how to get them in the right place and get them into unified strategy. So there isn't anything you can do here. It's just me being who I am and how I work within the company. So Irving, as much as I'd love to tell you that there was some magic bullet here, this is just something we do at SendLane. It also happens at the CSM level as well. Maybe not as hands-on, but we can still guide you with strategy as well too. So thank you for that. Let me hide that. All right, cool. I think that's it. I don't see any other questions here so far. So I want to thank everyone for being here, guys, today. I appreciate all your time here. Okay, I appreciate all your time here. It's been a great time. Again, the replay will be available in wherever you download, wherever you join here through Hopin. I think they'll be available. Please watch that. Otherwise, I hope to see you guys at Commerce Roundtable San Diego. Make sure you are what's that called? Make sure you're registering. Come out to San Diego, come meet me, come have a drink with me, come break some bread with me, eat some with me. It'll be a lot of good times. So thank you guys all for an amazing hour, 15 minutes here today. Thank you all and have a great one. And we'll talk soon. Adios.
Somebody call 911. Shawty fire burning on the dance floor. Whoa. What's up, Quan? Kingston. Let's go. Hey. Red one. Hey. Hey. Shawty got that super thing. Hotter than the sun in the south of Spain. Got me soon as I walk through the door.